Good afternoon, friends. Myself, CA Raj Chawla, organizer of this webinar. Welcome you all in this today's webinar on assessment under GST law. Today we have with us very senior uh, corporate lawyer, CS advocate, PK Mittal sir. Welcome, sir, to this webinar. Also, we have with us CA Ravinder Sungarji, a very senior chartered accountant, and CA Vipan Mittalji, chartered accountant at Chandigarh. So, friends, our speaker will discuss the procedure of assessment under GST. And now I request CA Ravinder Sungarji to please say a few words about today's webinar.
Firstly, though, I want to thank Mr. Raj Chawla for taking this initiative to organize webinar on various important topics, which are very useful for the advancement of the profession. It's really need lot of hard work and dedication, especially in this time of lockdown, when everybody is sitting at his home, and we are facing a challenge of COVID-19 pandemic and are under lockdown. Today, webinar on assessment under GST is very important and concerning all us as the assessments under the GST has already been started. Thank you, sir. And I request Mr. PK Mittal to start his deliberations.
Please, sir.
At the outset, I convey my sincere gratitude, thanks and regards to Sri Chawla ji and my esteemed panelists, and also the distinguished the persons who are joining and would be joining belong to the profession of esteemed profession of the chartered accountant, the company secretary, the ICMA, the lawyers, and other professions. And today's webinar would be on assessment, self-assessment, finalization of the provisional assessment, and there I'll be dealing on various case law. As you all know that case law is not available under the GST law, and whatever case law I would be referring to in my presentation, that pertains to the earlier law, that is the central excise and the service tax. And let me tell you, by and large, the provision with respect to the assessment under the central excise and the GST law are more or less same and equal. So therefore, the law which the settled law which used to be applied to the central excise and the service tax would equally apply to the GST law as well. So with this background, let me start. Let me start my presentation. The first slide. In the pre-GST regime, there was Rule 2B of the Central Excise Rule, which defined what exactly is meant by assessment. Under Rule 2B, assessment means self-assessment of duty. Duty here means excise duty paid by the assessee. And Rule 7 of the Central Excise Rule defined what is the meaning of the word provisional assessment and the grounds and the reasons for the purpose of seeking provisional assessment. And now let me tell you, the Rule 2B and Rule 7 are more or less equal to the Section 59, Section 60, 61, and the rules made out under the GST Act. Now 211 of the CGST Act defines what exactly is meant by assessment. Now here it says assessment includes each and everything. Assessment includes self-assessment, reassessment, provisional assessment, summary assessment, and a best judgment assessment. Now in my subsequent presentation, I'll be dealing with each of those terminology which has been used, that is self-assessment, reassessment and provisional assessment in my subsequent presentation. Now, let us first understand the basic law on the basic law in GST with respect to the self-assessment. Now, Section 59 talks of Section 59 of the CGST Act talks of self-assessment. It says every registered person shall self-assess the tax payable under this act and furnish a return for each period as specified under Section 39. Now, 39, as you know, 39 talks of filing of returns. So, 59 talks of the what you call self-assessment or self-assessment. Now, what is the meaning of self-assessment? Now, let me try to explain. Assessment means determination of tax liability by a registered person himself towards supply of goods or services and file return under Section 39. Now, let me try to explain by a couple of examples. Now, for example, your client is a manufacturer of, say, color television, and we have set up a unit just now, and we would be very soon starting from the month of June 2020 our production and obviously sale as well. Now, for the purpose of arriving at the transaction value as defined under Section 15 of the CGST Act, we will prepare a cost sheet. As we all know, the fixed cost, the variable cost, and finance cost, and other costs, and also the profit. Then, putting it all together, we will arrive at what we call a sale value or a transaction value. Now, let me tell you, there is a difference between the sale value and transaction value. And you would like to know what is the difference between sale value and transaction value? Assuming I have a sale value of, say, 40,000 for a color television. Now, on a particular day in the morning, a customer comes. He says, I want to buy a one color television. He says, what is the price? I say 50,000 because he wants to buy only one color television. He said, no, give me at 49,500. Give me discount of 500. I said, very fine. Take the discount because the corona period, take 500 discount. He takes, then he pays me 49,500 and takes away. Then after 2 hours, one person comes. He say, in my office, in my restaurant or in my hotel, I want to set up 10 televisions. Give me 10 LED televisions. He said, tell me what is the price. I said 50,000, which is my sale price. But he said, no, I want discount because I'm buying 10. Will you give me at 48,000 rupees? I thought this is very fine. He's buying 10 television. I gave him 48,000 rupees. So 48,000 is my transaction value. My sale value is 50,000 rupees, but my transaction value is 48,000 rupees. During lunchtime, a person comes. He says, I have a very big restaurant and I want to buy 50 color television. He again asked me the same thing. What is the price? I said 50. He said, no, give me at 47,000 rupees. I said, very fine. Since you want to buy 50, I'll give you at say 40,000 rupees. He pays me with the price of 40,000, takes away. Now 47 is also a transaction value, though my sale value is only 50,000 rupees. And during daytime, I find that there is a dealer who comes from, say, some small city from UP. He said, I want to buy 200 televisions, but I'll pay only 46,000 rupees. I said, since he is buying 200 television, let us give more discount to him or more price reduction. So I charge only 46,000 rupees. So Friends, what I am saying is this method of giving discount, concession, a reduction in price is perfectly allowable in section 15 of the CGST Act. And each of the amount, right from 49,500 to 47,000 rupees, is a transaction value. And nobody can question it why you have reduced the amount at the fag end of the day. I can always justify that each of the customer was buying more and more quantity. So therefore I was tempted. Therefore I was tempted to give a discount or a reduction in price or a concession in price. So and when I file a return, when I file a return for the entire month, which as we all know that we have to file by 20th of next month, and we have to pay tax. So this I told you about a one day. Now this, assuming this add-on for 30 days, so this is the return for the month of say June 2020. In the when I file a return, I know I know how much it tax according to my calculation, how much tax has become payable to the government. So that is called a self-assessment in simple word. Uh, Sir, the questions I would be taking at the end of the session, or if you want, I can take up side by side also, whatever way you want me to proceed further.
You will take it at the end.
Now, the parliament, sorry, let me give an example of say the now this is what I'm related to the now here carry out the audit, the cost audit of the bill, and therefore he has to visit many places, he has to visit various branches also, and at the end of the day, when he works out how much the total cost is worked out to be, how much is my effort, how much revenue, how much is my investment, and then he calculates and raises the award. And the self-assessment that at the end of the day, whatever I appreciate, I know how much I appreciate, that becomes my certificate or the following certificate. This certificate, the department for calculation of revenue, and the process replica of exercise, that collected and the previous. And I said also, there is a concept of self-assessment. Now, that assessment also applies to I. Now, procedure for scrutiny of returns. Now, as I have submitted, everyone we file return. Now, the question is what to be done when we file return. The question arises what to be done with these returns. Now, I submit to you. In fact, now in the GST regime, there are no instructions, departmental instruction, but in the service tax regime, there is a departmental instructions. Now, departmental instruction says that when the I'm talking about the pre-GST regime. When we file returns under the service tax law, it is the obligation of the superintendent, who is now the PO for the purpose of scrutiny of these returns which we are filing under the GST law. It is the duty of the superintendent under the pre-GST regime to examine, to analyze, to thoroughly check the returns which have been filed by the service tax assessee and find out as to whether he has paid the correct, first of all, whether he has charged the correct value, whether if he has charged, if he has excluded certain expenses, whether the expenses which he has, of which he sought exclusion, whether is correct or not, and what is the rate of tax which he is charging, is also the correct rate of tax or not. So it is a duty and obligation of the superintendent uh, to find out, to scrutinize, to analyze, to examine the returns which are filed both in the pre-GST regime as well in the GST regime, as to find out as to whether the correct amount of tax duty has been paid by the assessee to the department or not. So this is the obligation in the GST regime. This is the duty of superintendent who has been designated as a proper officer. Because if you see, under the GST law as well as under various rules framed thereunder, at many places the word uses proper officer. So for the purpose of scrutiny of the returns, it is a superintendent who is the proper officer designated by the department to carry out this scrutiny. Otherwise, let me tell you, under the indirect tax regime, that is pre-GST regime and post-GST regime also, this superintendent is a very pivotal, and जैसे कहते हैं एक धुरी होती है, and everything revolves around the learned superintendent in the department. Now, if you want a hearing, you have to approach superintendent. If you want a scrutiny of returns, you have to approach superintendent. If you want to have any other information, if you want any document, if you want to submit any document, you have to approach superintendent. So superintendent therefore has been made a proper officer for the purpose of scrutiny of the returns which I file under section 39 of CGST Act. Now, upon any deficiency or discrepancy being found, PO means proper officer shall issue a notice in CGST ASMT 10 calling upon the party to remove and seeking explanation within a such period not exceeding 15 days. This 15 days, though time has been put in, it is a big question mark whether this time schedule of 15 days has been stuck to. I don't think even in the current regime, before even lockdown also, the learned professionals or the assessee, whether they have received any notice from the proper officer about any discrepancy in the return, in the self-assessed return which has been filed by the assessee or not. But nonetheless, a time of 15 days has been prescribed. And let me tell you, there are number of judgments of the tribunal. That is, when I say tribunal, means custom, excise, and service appellate tribunal, where the tribunal has held that if something has been disclosed in my return, which I file, monthly return, which I file under section 39, then tomorrow department cannot say that there is a concealment on the part of assessee so as to invoke the extended period of limitation as provided under section 74 of the CGST Act. Because there are a number of judgment of the tribunal where the tribunal has clearly held that when information of the required nature has been clearly spelled out and disclosed by the assessee to the department in the return, it is the fundamental and sacrosanct duty of the department to very carefully, analytically analyze and examine the return so submitted by the assessee. And if they overlook or they do not take cognizance of that information which has been given by the assessee, then tomorrow they are prohibited from invoking the extended period of limitation of 5 years as provided under section 74 of the CGST Act. because the law is very clear. If something has been disclosed, you can't say there is a concealment, there is a misrepresentation, or there is a fraudulent conduct on the part of SSC. Now, if PO is satisfied with the explanation oblique submission, PO will inform the party in form GST ASMT 12 as per Rule 99(2) of CGST and SC so and so rules. Now, let me tell you, friends, this satisfaction part, though it is provided in the rules, but in reality it never happens. Department generally, I am using the word generally, do not write to the SSC that I am satisfied with the explanation and submission sent by you. What they do is, when they are not satisfied, or they feel that the calculation of tax which has been done by me is not in accordance with provisions of section 15 of the CGST Act, they, on the contrary, they set to draft an SCN and issue SCN to you, seeking to raise a demand of the tax, interest and penalty, which I have said. So PO shall determine the tax, interest and penalty as per Rule 99(1) CGST rule and SGST rule 2017. So he will draft out an SCN and give the reasons, give the contentions, give the grounds as to why the tax which I self determined or self assessed is not in accordance with law, and this is violation of so and so provision of law or so and so rules. So therefore, this much of additional tax is payable and this much interest is payable, and accordingly, depending upon the facts of the case, the penalty has also become payable by the SSC. So that show cause notice will come to you. Now, if the show cause comes, again there are two situations. One, the party may accept the quantification of tax, interest or penalty. Now, if you feel yes, that amount of tax has escaped my attention, or there was a bona fide mistake on my part, that I made a wrong calculation of tax, or there is a bona fide escape, or there is some other mistake which has crept in, which is genuine and bona fide, and therefore tax is payable, then the party says, okay, very fine, I pay the tax, interest and penalty and buy the peace. Otherwise, the option is that the person has a right, to file an appeal under section 107 of CGST Act, in view of the fact that section 107 permit filing of an appeal against the decision. Now let me tell you, if you look at section 107 of CGST Act talks of the filing of an appeal against two things. One is decision and one is order. When I say decision, means a decision on substantial things, on a substantive things. A order means maybe if for example the superintendent asks for certain information to me which I can't provide at all, which is impossible to provide, then what is the remedy? I can file an appeal before the commissioner appeal. I said what information I is asking for is impossible to provide. So appeal under section 107 lies against two things. One is decision and second is order. When I say order, it includes also interim order. It also includes miscellaneous orders. It includes any other type of order which are issued and passed by the officers of the department under various provisions of the CGST Act. So if any order is passed, any miscellaneous order is passed, and the interim order is passed by the authorities under the CGST Act, then also I am entitled to file an appeal before the first appellate authority under section 107 of the CGST Act. Now, the order passed by PO, that is by the proper officer, would fall within section 107 of the CGST Act, as I have just now explained to you. Now, I give you the very latest and landmark judgment of this Andhra Pradesh High Court of September 2009 in the case of Bachina Srinivas versus CCE, Manu AP 02552019, where the Honorable High Court has observed that self-assessment under the self-assessment regime, and this judgment is of service tax regime. A statutory obligation is upon every person providing service in terms of Section 70 of the Finance Act 1994 within back to service tax, where under the appellant is legally required to assess and accordingly discharge the service tax liability within the time limits prescribed under the law. Then there is one more judgment of the Guwahati High Court. There also the Guwahati High Court's Honorable Guwahati High Court also defines what exactly is meant by the self-assessment. And these two judgment of they are all latest judgment of 2019. The division bench of Guwahati High Court in the case of Brahmaputra Teleproduction Private Limited versus State Bank of India, so and so, while dealing with an issue of SCN, where the assessee has admitted duty or tax is payable as per self-assessment during PGST regime, what the High Court says makes a very interesting reading. A conjoined reading of Section 73 and 87 of the Finance Act, that is service tax law, would go to show that in case of non-payment of service tax dues, SCN would be issued within the time frame. As we all know, earlier time frame, I think 1.5 years, within which SCN was to be issued, and with extended period of limitation, it was 5 years. If the assessee submits a reply to SCN, the same has to be considered before quantifying the service tax dues. Therefore, an element of adjudication is inbuilt in Section 73. Now, the second pair is extremely important. However, in case of self-assessment we talk of now Section 59 of the CGST Act. However, in case of self-assessment, in which case the defaulted amount should be recovered since the assessee accepts that this amount is payable on self-assessment and therefore no adjudication is necessary. When no adjudication is necessary, meaning thereby there is no obligation on the part of the department to submit to issue a show cause notice. Obviously, you will have no right to prepare and file reply to the show cause notice, and obviously there will not be any opportunity of personal hearing being granted to the assessee. But let me tell you otherwise. And I'll most respectfully and humbly submit to all the professionals that let all professionals must thoroughly go through the provisions of Section 75 of the CGST Act, and more particularly Section 75 subsection 4. And for the benefit of all the learned audience, let me read Section 75 subsection 4. It says, and subsection 4 says, now let me show the headings. 75 heading is general provisions relating to determination of tax. So therefore, this is a Bible. Section 75 is a Bible, is sort of a detailed do and do not to the department, to the assessee, to keep in the mind who is involved in adjudication, who is involved in filing of an appeal before the appellate authority. Now, if we go through subsection 4 of section 75, it makes a very interesting reading. It says, an opportunity of hearing shall be granted. The word is mandatory word are there. A opportunity of hearing shall be granted where a request is received in writing from the persons chargeable with tax or penalty. Now, pause for a minute, and there is a further word, or where any adverse decision is contemplated against such person. So the law says where the department wishes to, or contemplate, or intend, or desire to pass any order which is prejudicial or which is injurious to the interest of the assessee, then in that event, the principle of natural justice is required to be followed. And as I said when I was reading the first line of subsection 4 of section 75, where it is written, an opportunity of hearing shall be granted where a request is received in writing from the person chargeable with tax or penalty. Now, I'll submit, when you are filing a reply to the show cause notice, or when you are filing a reply to any other document whereby you are seeking some approval, some permission, some consent, or some important favor you are seeking from the department, I'll always advise you to write one para at the bottom of your letter saying that we crave leave of this honorable authority to amend, alter, modify, add, alter, substitute all or any of the submissions made here and above, and also wish to crave leave to, to file any other document, report, paper, evidence, statement, books of account, annual account in support of our case, and further crave leave of an opportunity of personal hearing. If you write these 5-6 lines, these are extremely important, and once you have prayed for an opportunity of personal hearing, I am quite sure the officer cannot deny you the opportunity of personal hearing. And despite having written these lines, if he doesn't allow you a personal hearing, if he doesn't send a letter for PH, that is personal hearing, and decide ex parte, then it is a settled law. Any order passed in violation of principle natural justice is a nullity in law, is void and not voidable. And all learned professional, they are well aware of the distinction between void and voidable. If something is void, any amount of consent, any amount of waiver cannot work. If something is void, something is void is a void ab initio. It cannot be regularized, it cannot be sanctified, it cannot be corrected at all. So therefore, I'll advise all the learned professionals, whenever they are submitting any application, they must write these words. Now let us read the last para. However, in case of self-assessment, in which case the defaulted amount shall be recovered, since the assessee accepts that this amount is payable on self-assessment, and therefore no adjudication is necessary. Kindly, there is a distinction between the earlier part and this part. Now, in self-assessment, when I am filing a return under section 39, I am myself saying that this much of tax is payable by me. I have to pay, admittedly payable by me. There is no dispute, there is no question, there is no doubt, there is no ambiguity. So when I myself say that this amount is payable, and which amount I have, amount I have not paid, So therefore, there is no question of any adjudication. Where adjudication is required, where SCM is required. When myself I am saying in the return, this much amount is payable by me admittedly, for me there is no dispute, there is no doubt, there is no question. But if the show cause notice comes where the tax has to be adjudicated, interest has to be adjudicated, penalty has to be adjudicated, then a show cause notice is a must, and compliance of section 7075, section 4 is a must. But in a case of self-assessed tax, it is my own case that this tax is payable. So therefore, there is no question of issuing any SCN in case of self-assessed tax. Now, the self-assessment is also defined by Delhi High Court in the case of Shakti Bhog Foods Limited is a case of income tax, and the citation is Manu Delhi 2651 2016. The division bench Delhi High Court says by the process of self-assessment, the assessee is required to pay tax on the basis of his return, and such tax is treated as assessed tax. Meaning thereby, it is my own case that in this law, that is income tax law, maybe GST law, maybe your the customs law, that this is the amount which admittedly is payable by me. So this is a self-assessed tax, and it is a case of self-assessed tax. There is no question of any show cause notice. This amount is automatically becomes payable by the assessee. Now, again, this judgment of Karnataka High Court is a is a landmark judgment. And now let me explain the facts of in the case of LC Infra project. This is of 2019 case, and is right under the CGST Act only. The issue came up for consideration before the Karnataka High Court in the case of LC Infra project, Union of India, Manu KA, Karnataka High Court, 53002019, as to whether SCN is necessary for claiming interest under Section 50 of CGST Act, and also attachment of bank account. Now, two things are there. In that case, the department is claiming the interest as well as seeking attachment of the bank account. The court has observed, the Honorable Division Bench has observed, that the show cause notice is sine qua non. Sine qua non means is absolutely necessary to proceed with the recovery of interest payable thereon under Section 50 of CGST. Now, let me tell you, if there is no dispute about the rate of interest and the period of interest, then SC is not necessary, because in case of self-assessed tax return which I filed under Section 39, if I have not paid tax, department has prescribed the rate of tax. I know for which period I defaulted in making the payment of tax. So therefore, I myself can calculate how much amount of interest becomes payable by me, because there is a default in payment of tax. Now, what the High Court says, swing canon, so-called notice is a swing canon to proceed further with the recovery of interest payable thereon under Section so and so, so and so. Now, undisputedly, interest payable under Section 50 of the Act has been adjudicated by the proper officer without SCN, which is in breach of principle of natural justice. Similarly, after determination of the interest liable to be paid by the petitioner, no notice has been issued before attaching a bank account of the petitioner. This is a lapse on the part of proper officer. Now, in this case, before attaching a bank account, no intimation and no show cause was given, no opportunity was given to the assessee to explain the reasons before the department wishes to take the drastic action of attaching a bank account. No opportunity of hearing was granted. So therefore, the Honorable Division Bench has held it is a clear case of violation of principle of natural justice, and therefore the order is liable to be set aside. Now, last para. The argument of PO, that section 7512 of the Act, that is CGST Act, empower the authorities to proceed with recovery without issuing show cause notice is only misconceived, as section is applicable only to the self-assessment made by the SSC. If the tax is self-assessed and recovery is only for that, then it is all right. But if it is not that case, if you want to recover something more than the self-assessed tax, if you want to if you want to levy penalty, if you want to attach the bank account, then in that event, the issuance of show cause notice is a mandatory. And in this case, that since no show cause notice was issued, so therefore High Court has held that there is a gross violation of principle of natural justice, and therefore the order passed by the authority was patently illegal and void, and order was set aside, being in violation of principle of natural justice. The High Court held that by virtue of Section 7, no SN is necessary for recovery of tax or interest in case of self-assessment, as the party itself admits that the particular amount of tax and interest is payable. So, where it is a case of self-assessment, where there is no dispute about the tax payable, where there is no dispute about the period and the rate of interest for which interest is payable, in those situations, there is absolutely no need of issuing NSCN to the SSC, and there is no question of any adjudication, because it is the own case of SSC that this much of tax is payable by him. And obviously, when tax is payable and with the same corollary, the interest is also payable by the SSC. Now, let us understand. Now, we have so far talked of the provisional assessment. Now, let us discuss what exactly is meant by provisional assessment. The provisional assessment is defined under Section 61 of the CGST Act, which reads as under: subject to provision of subsection 2, where a taxable person is unable to determine the value of goods or value of services, or both, or determine rate of tax applicable thereto. So, two things: where he is not able to determine the value of goods, or where the assessee is not able to determine what is the rate of tax, whether it is 18%, whether it is 28%, whether it is 5%, whether it is 12%. So therefore, in those situations where the assessee is absolutely unclear about the valuation or about the rate of interest, then he can apply to the department for the purpose of provisional assessment, as stated in Section 60 of the CGST Act. Now, what he has to do is, he may request the proper officer in writing, giving reasons for payment of tax on a provisional basis, and the proper officer shall pass an order within a period of not less than 90 days from the date of receipt of such request, allowing the payment of tax on provisional basis at such rate or on such value as may be specified by him. This is what the text of Section 60. Now, as per Rule 98 of CGST rule, an SSC can request for provisional assessment in accordance with provision of Section 61(1) of CGST Act in the following circumstances: A, where the SSC is unable to determine the value of the excisable goods in terms of Section 15, previously Section 4 of the Central Excise Act, on account of non-availability of any document or information, or assessee is unable to determine the rate of duty applicable, the assessee may move an application in form GST ASMT 01 on a common portal, giving reasons for seeking provisional assessment of tax. Now, I later on I'll give you what are the various situations. Just by way of example, by way of illustration, some of the example which I will be giving you, where you can request the department for the purpose of provisional assessment. Contents of the application. This is the guideline issued by the department under the before pre-GST regime. As per departmental guidelines within bracket pre-GST regime, and let me tell you, friends, in the GST regime, they are not so far. They are not much of a guideline. There are some of the circular issued by the department. And now let me tell you, the guidelines, the trade notice, the commissioner notice is all valid. You can always seek the help of those guidelines, those instructions, those trade notices which have been issued by the department in pre-GST regime. And you can always bind the department, and you can tell the department you can't go against your own departmental guidelines. You can't go on your instructions, on your circulars or trade notice. Now here, the assessee making a request for a provisional assessment to indicate the following: A, specific grounds and the documents and information for want of which final assessment cannot be made, period for which provisional assessment is required. Next, rate of duty or the value or both, as the case may be, proposed to be applied by assessee for provisional assessment. So when you are submitting the application, this information and documents is required to be submitted along with your application. Otherwise, what will happen? He will once again write to you that please provide this information. So therefore, in one go, please submit all the necessary requisite and desired information to the PO, so that he decide your application within one go, and you can start raising the invoices of the correct amount of tax and duty. Now, what are the could be various reasons for taking provisional assessment? A, where RP has some issue with the principal about the amount to be charged toward tax. For the government department, in government department, he has given you a very composite contract: supply of goods, supply of services. Some are exempt, some are non-exempt, some are non-taxable. So in that case, you are not very sure about what is the rate of tax. So therefore, the better course would be write to the department, sir, please guide me, that, or you tell that I want to clear on provisional assessment basis. Number two, where RP would be raising a single bill both for taxable and non-taxable, which is and he is not certain that which is taxable, which is not taxable, and what rate they are taxable and what rate they are not taxable. Next, whether amount charged by RP is exigible to tax or not. Next, where RP not sure about the reimbursement of amount claimed from the principal for the purpose of valuation, because many times certain amount is also given by way of reimbursement, which you may have spent in the capacity of agent, or some may not be in the capacity of agent, and you may not be sure about the transaction value for the purpose of payment of tax under section 15 of the CGST Act. So therefore, you may seek the provisional assessment from the department. Next, when RP to receive lump sum amount about composite supply, little difficult to distribute between supply of goods or services. So therefore, again, you can apply for provisional assessment. Next. Now is a landmark case of Torrent Power Project, Gujarat High Court, Division Bench of Gujarat High Court. In this case, what has happened? A composite contract was given by the Gujarat government to the Torrent Power, right from conception, designs, drawing, supply, erection, fabrication, commissioning, installation, and starting the power project. And as we all know, there is no GST payable on electricity. But along with this also, there were number of services which were being offered by the Torrent Power. For example, this fee to be charged for giving connection, fee charge for giving reconnection, fee charge for disconnection, fee charge of the transfer of connection from one place to another place. So there were number of situations where the amount was claimable by torrent power. Now, torrent power, torrent power. In fact, the matter went to the. They were not very clear about whether, in respect of the services which they are offering, whether they are taxable or not. The Gujarat High Court said, "Look, gentlemen, when the main service, sorry, main contract, when the main contract is not liable to any tax, and the ancillary service like the connection charges, disconnection charges, shifting charges, all these are ancillary charges. And since the main service, since the main supply of goods or service is non-taxable, so therefore these are also not taxable. So when a situation is like this, naturally you may like to approach the department, and before you ultimately decide, you may like for provisional assessment. Now, there could be case where you are not able to classify a product under which tariff heading this product will fall. So therefore, naturally you are in doubt, because so far law is not settled on this point. This law is an nascent stage, is an infancy stage. People are not unsure. Now, for example, I just saw a advanced ruling authority on flavored milk. Now, flavored milk, what is the rate of tax? The party went to advanced ruling authority. Please guide me. So one situation could be you can approach for department for provisional clearance of the product also. Next, where contract provide for cost plus basis for determining the value of supply, the final supply will be determined only when the cost is determined. Now, D is very important. Supplier may circulate discount policy to dealers stipulating who purchase goods more than 2 crore within 3 months will get additional 5% discount. Now, kindly appreciate, if today you come out with a sales policy and you are starting your production and sales, say from July 2020, and you have set out your sales policy that if you sell, say, for 2 crore, this much is the discount. If you sell 5 crore, this is the discount. If you sell 10 crore, this is the discount. But today you are not sure. If in July you are raising a bill, you are not sure in next quarter how much sale your dealer will affect or how much sale he will make out. Then the question arises, what is the discount you will make? How much discount you will give it to him? You are not sure, because you will come to know only after 3 months that how much sale he has made. Whether he exceeded 2 crore or not, then you will come to know after 3 months only. Now, if today you raises a bill without taking into consideration that 5% discount, result is what? You have paid excess tax. So therefore, to avoid payment of excess tax, it is absolutely necessary that you ask for the department. And let me tell you, in the pre-GST regime, in the central excise regime, because I have been handling the case of Hindustan Lever Limited, and Hindustan Lever Limited has been always asking for provisional assessment, because they were offering number of discounts to the dealer, to the CNF, to the dealer, and to the CNF agent. And let me tell you, the by and large, the section of the provision of section 4 and now the provision of section 15 is more or less same, excepting that related party transaction is something little different. But all when we talk of discount under section 15, it covers variety of discount. It covers your quantity discount, it covers your cash discount, it covered discount for damages, it covered other types of discount. So when you are raising a bill for the first time, you are not sure what exactly is the quantum of discount which I will have to offer my dealer or distributor. So therefore, it is absolutely necessary that we go for provisional assessment. There could be there could be another situation. For example, I have one unit. Both units are located in the state of Rajasthan, say in Bhiwadi. I have one unit whereby I simply prepare the wire from copper, and wire which is prepared from the copper is transferred to my own another unit, and there the wire and cables are manufactured out of the copper wire which is supplied by my own unit to him. Now the question is, if from 1st of July the new unit has been set up which will manufacture copper. Now the question is or for example I say some 1st of January, 2020, 2020, this unit which manufacture only copper wire, they have to transfer the product to another unit. The question is, what rate? What rate should I transfer? The question will then arise is, I will have to find out what is the price of a copper in the year 2019. On the basis of the prices of copper in the entire year 2019, I'll work out the price of copper, because in the manufacture of the electric wire and cable, the 90% cost is that of a copper wire only. So therefore, on the price of 2019, I'll work out the price of a copper wire for the year 2020, and at that price I'll transfer to my own unit in Bhiwadi at a distant place, which is separately registered as a distinct person. So therefore, a tax is payable by me when I transfer the copper wire from one unit to my own another unit. Now I'm not sure. So therefore, the better course is that I apply for provisional assessment, because in that event I can avoid the best advantage of assessment is seeking provisional assessment is that when I'm seeking provisional assessment, then there are chances of not leaving any penalty. Now, now beside the all information, what all I have to give it to the department is undertaking to appear before AC. Now, AC is the proper officer for the purpose of finalization of the provisional assessment. AC or DC is the proper officer within 7 days or such day fixed by him. Furnish all information and document within the time fixed by the assistant oblique deputy commissioner in his order, so as to enable the proper officer to finalize the provisional assessment. Now, as per Rule 98(2), PO, if so desire, call for additional information document, and the assessee would submit its reply in form so and so. On such application, if PO is of the opinion that provisional assessment is not necessary, he may ask the assessee to appear before him on that day. Well, against this order of declining the provisional assessment, you can always file an appeal before the first appellate authority. Next para. After hearing, PO may issue an order in form GST ASMT 04 that either provisional assessment is not necessary, or he may order provisional assessment. As I said, if he declines provisional assessment, you have a right to file an appeal before the first appellate authority, or in case he has granted you the provisional assessment, then you can start manufacturing and clearing the goods on under provisional assessment basis. Now, next, these are all procedural requirements. The assessee shall execute a bond in form GST ASM so and so in accordance with Rule 60 within bracket Rule 2, with the security in the form of bank guarantee. for an amount as may be fixed by PO. So we have to furnish two things. One is bond, and secondly the bank guarantee, which could be any amount not exceeding to 25% of the amount of the bond, in case we want to go for provisional assessment. So be ready for compliance of two things: execution of bond and the furnishing of a bank guarantee of an amount not exceeding 25% of the amount of bond. Now the assessment so and so has been designed as the designated as the PO for the purpose of fixing the amount of bank guarantee. As per there is a circular also which says that the proper officer is the deputy commissioner or assistant commissioner. Now one question, one question will be arising in the mind of some of the learned persons, that assuming I would be starting a production in my factory, say in 1st of June 2020, and tomorrow I'm moving an application for provisional assessment. And as we all know, once you move an application before provisional assessment, it is not necessary that immediately they will clear it. They will take, say, 15 days, 20 days, maybe 30 days, maybe 2 months also. Then the question arises, since I have to start the production from 1st of June, my factory is ready, my workers are ready, raw material is ready, everything is ready. Now, in the absence of the permission granted by the department, what do I do? Can I clear the goods or can I not clear the goods? The answer is, I don't have to hold on. Whatever in my best judgment, in my best estimation, is the tax, I start clearing the goods by raising an invoice, by paying a duty and informing the department that this I am clearing on provisional basis, for which I have already made a request to the department. So therefore, my production is not held up, my working is not held up. Now, there are a couple of landmark judgment of the Supreme Court and the tribunal on this. The Supreme Court in the case of Metal Forging Union of India, while dealing with an issue as to when assessment would be deemed to be provisional, they have laid down certain yardstick. For clearance to be held on provisional basis, what the Supreme Court says is there should be an order, a written order passed by the AC/DC under Rule 9B. Because in the earlier regime also there is to be AC and DC. In the current regime also there are AC and DC. So the designation officer remains same. So there has to be order. The most important aspect of provisional assessment in pre-GST regime was there has got to be a written order saying that the department is allowing the provisional assessment. This order was required. Number two, evidence to show that the goods were cleared on provisional basis. So whenever in earlier regime, whenever you used to file return, you used to indicate in the return that the goods were cleared on provisional basis. Third, payment of duty was also made on the basis of said provisional qualification. So therefore, in earlier regime also, whenever you used to pay duty and tax, you used to indicate that this duty has been paid on provisional basis. Now, in the earlier case, this is of Metal Forging of 2002. I am reading this subsequent para of that judgment. Authorities have made endorsement on the bonds and the monthly RT12 returns filed by the SSC, indicating that it is a case of provisional assessment. The Supreme Court rejected the contention of SSC that since the express order has not been passed for provisional assessment, hence it will not be treated as provisional assessment. So therefore, for any clearances to be on provisional basis, there has got to be a written order. This is what the law says. Now, for the purpose of the provisional assessment, what is further required is proviso to Rule 98, subsection sub Rule 4, bond furnished to PO under CGST oblique SGST, also valid for IGST oblique SGST and UGST. Amount of bond shall include IGST, CGST, sale tax, U tax, cess, and if any. Details of goods and service made by RP declared in table of GSTR1 column in table 5 provide that assessment is on provisional basis. So therefore, whenever you are also filing a GSTR1 with the department, there is a column to show that the goods have been cleared on provisional basis. I'll explain what is the benefit of clearing the goods on provisional basis also. Now I'll show a couple of very interesting judgment of the tribunal, and which are all these landmark judgment which I am quoting here, and which all professional must have in their diary. SSC applied for provisional assessment, neither rejected nor information called for, no order was passed. Application was complete with all the document, with full justification, valid reasons, valid explanation, yet no order was passed. What the tribunal says, assessment held to be provisional. This is JBM Industries Limited versus CC 2004-170, Excise Law Times 363, Tribunal. Now there is one more judgment of December 2019, which is a little deviation of metal forging. Metal forging is Supreme Court judgment. This judgment is a little deviation from the earlier judgment. Here what Supreme Court says is, Supreme Court has taken somewhat diametrically different view in view of the peculiar facts and circumstances of this case, and held that appellant. Now, why Supreme Court took a different view in this case? There are three reasons. And what are those three reasons are? Number one, appellant voluntarily executed bonds in Form B13 under Rule 9B, and also furnished bank guarantee. Bond was given, bank guarantee was given. Authorities also have made endorsement on the bonds and RT12 return filed by the SSC. So department also carried out necessary endorsement on the RT12 return, which is filed by the SSC with the department, indicating that it is a case of provisional assessment, except that only written order was not passed. What the Supreme Court says is, Supreme Court rejected the conjunction of SSC that since express order has not been passed for provisional assessment, hence it will not be treated as provisional assessment. And the distinction I have already said. Let me point out once again what are the reasons for distinction. Number one, that the SSC voluntarily executed bond in Form B13. Bank guarantee also gave. Then authority also carried out scrutiny, carried out examination of RT12 returns, and after examination, they also made endorsement that provisional assessment is made. There was assessment on RT12 return. There was a noting in RC12 return that it is a provisional assessment. So therefore, the Supreme Court says just because order has not been passed, it will not make any difference, and the assessment will continue to be a provisional assessment. Now, it is again a very landmark judgment of tribunal when request for provisional assessment denied on flimsy ground, absurd ground, unjustified ground, untenable ground. What the tribunal says, it was held to be provisional, despite it is denied on a flimsy ground. The citation is TVS Motor versus so-and-so, 2007, 215 ELT, Hindustan Cable 2008 230 ELT 331. Now, one more judgment. Clearances cannot be held to be provisional because order of refusal challenged in appeal. Just because order of the PO, he says, I am declining provisional assessment, you file an appeal challenging that order, you can't claim that the goods which you are clearing is on provisional basis. For provisional basis, the basic procedural requirement, that is execution of a bond, execution of a guarantee, and passing of order, three things are necessary. Next, order of provisional assessment is mandatory even if bond is not furnished, as bond conditions could be changed. This is a judgment of the tribunal in the case of Ravi Mardia versus CCE 2118, Excise Law Times 626, Tribunal. This is a 5-member bench judgment. Is a larger, is a 5-member bench, is a what you call a constitution bench judgment. For the, although of course in tribunal there is nothing called constitution bench, but 5-member bench is a largest bench. Perhaps I have not heard there is a more number of members in a bench in the sestet. So here it clearly says that even if bond is not executed and condition not fulfilled, uh, even then, if otherwise the assessee is entitled to a provisional assessment, then his assessment will be treated as provisional. Now, once your assessments are provisional, let me tell you, friends, it is absolutely necessary that we go for finalization of assessment as quickly as possible, because then we will come to know that how much tax, actually how much tax I am supposed to pay to the department. So therefore, we must always strive, we must always make an effort, and request the department, kindly finalize my assessment which are provisional, and finalize them as early as possible, so that my tax liability is ascertained, and how much interest I have to pay, that is also ascertained. So therefore, although time given is 6 months, extendable to another 6 months, total time permitted under the law is 12 months, but it can always go beyond 12 months also. But as I said, it is always advisable to request the department to go for finalization as early as possible. There is a CB circular of 5/7/2017. Now, Assistant Commissioner for Central Tax has been authorized as a proper officer to finalize provisional assessment under Section 60, subsection 1, read with Rule 98 of CGST rules. So the total time allowed is 12 months, 6 months, extendable to another 6 months. Total time is 12 months, and within 12 months, assessment which is provisional has got to be finalized, so that once assessment is finalized, I'll come to know how much exactly amount I have to pay to the department, along with the in case the amount turned out to be to more, then I have to pay interest also for the amount which I paid less. And in case tomorrow, if it has comes that actually tax payable is less, I'm entitled to refund also along with interest. Precondition for finalization of process. This is an extremely important thing which you must bear in the mind. Whenever department wishes to finalize the provisional assessment, a show cause notice has got to be given to the assessee, so that assessee appears before the proper officer along with his books of account, along with his sales policy, along with his discount which he has given, along with the copies of the invoices, along with the copy of credit note, debit note which he raised, so that, and he comes with the entire document to show, to satisfy the department that the price which I have charged in my invoices is a real, genuine, and bona fide value. So therefore, the once SCN is given, only then assessee will be able to appear before the authority along with all the evidence, along with the books of account, along with the paper, along with the necessary evidence. So therefore, this is the landmark judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of CC versus ITC 1994 71 ELT 324 Supreme Court, where it is held that SCN is a must before finalization of provisional assessment. Second, this is also Guwahati High Court judgment. PO to follow uh, PO to follow principle of natural justice to adjudicate duty while finalizing the assessment, that is Sharda Plywood Industries was Union of India 2006 so. Next, RP provide information for RP means registered person. RP provides information for actual quantity discount availed by dealer on the basis of which provisional assessment. As I said when I was submitting to you that why you will need provisional assessment, this I said one of the reason was when you want to give quantity discount. Now you have in the invoice you are raising you are claiming a price after giving quantity discount. So you will have to satisfy the department that after 3 months, this is the actual quantity discount which I have given to him. The price which I charged 3 months back, it was a provisional price, and provisional price is supported by actual quantity discount which I have given to my dealer and distributor, and this is the credit note, or these are the document to show that I have actually given the quantity discount to my dealer or distributor. Action post finalization of assessment. Upon finalization, refund to now. If there once the finalization takes place, there can be two situations. One is if the after calculation being done by the department as well as the registered person, it may turn out that the duty or tax which I paid during the time when the goods were cleared on a provisional basis, the price was little higher than the actual price which has been arrived at after finalization of assessment. Then the assessee is entitled to a refund under section 54 of the CGST Act. Now, when you seek refund from the department, then department immediately comes, you satisfy me that this amount of duty you have not recovered from the dealer or from the distributor or from your purchaser. Next, demand for tax cannot be made before finalization of assessment. Now, assuming assessment is pending, now during the pendency of your assessment, before finalization, department may be feeling that I am paying lesser amount of duty, but they can't ask for tax from me before actually finalizing the provisional assessment. This is what the Bombay High Court in the case of Godrej case has been held. Now, there is one more interesting judgment. If assessment is provisional for one reason, it remains provisional for all other reasons. Next, demand sought to be raised as a consequence of finalization of assessment, fresh action is not required. Meaning thereby, once in front of assessee, PO carries out the whole exercise of arriving at the how much tax was actually payable and how much tax has been paid, and this has been done in consultation with the department, in consultation with SSC, and the figure has been arrived at. So therefore, a second time for demanding a duty, A fresh SCN is not required. This is what the tribunal says in the case of Bhansali engineering. Next, after finalization of provisional assessment, RP, registered person, shall along with the tax, shall pay tax along with the accrued interest as prescribed under section 50. If RP does not pay tax within 15 days after finalization of assessment, bond or bank guarantee can be invoked. So therefore, once assessment has been finalized and still the party is not making payment, then as I have submitted at the time of making an application, at the time when your application is approved, you are submitting the bond, you are submitting the bank guarantee. Immediately, what the bank will do, they will invoke your bank guarantee. They will invoke the bank guarantee. They will attach your they will attach they will encash the bank guarantee and will realize the money. And they will write to you that you make payment or else they will attach the bank account also. Next, if the tax paid found more, the RP would be entitled to refund along with the interest accrued as per section 60, subsection 5. So, if after detailed calculation being carried out, if it is ascertained that the amount of tax paid is much more than the amount which has actually been arrived at by the department, then the assessee is entitled to the refund. And as I said, by virtue of Mafatlal judgment, the assessee has to satisfy the department the amount of which I am seeking refund. This amount he has not recovered from the dealer, from the distributor, or from the purchaser. This is absolutely necessary. And how I have to satisfy the department that there is no unjust enrichment, I'll come to you with the detailed procedure for that also. Application in GST ASMT 08 for release of security furnished after issue of final assessment order in accordance with rule 98.6. Then if either one situation will be, if there are no taxes, if there are no tax to be paid by you, the department will release your bond, the department will release your bank guarantee. But provided also if there are no other taxes and dues. If the RP feels that tax is payable and you are not paying the tax, then he will invoke the bank guarantee and he will invoke your bond also. Demand sought to be raised as a consequence of financial provision assessment. Fresh STN is not required. So sorry, this I already said so. Interest if payment made during pendency of provisional assessment. Section 60, subsection 4 assigns if the assessee has not paid tax on the supply of goods or services, both under provisions. Now the question is what is the advantage? The question is, if after the assessment have been carried out, that is provisional assessment has been finalized, now a figure of tax has been arrived at, then naturally department will say, look Mr. Assessee, you have paid less tax when you are clearing the goods under when you are supplying the goods or services under the provisional assessment basis, you paid less tax. So therefore you also pay the interest which is payable under section 50 of the CGST. So therefore the advantage is that along with the tax, interest is also payable. But let me submit to you, the penalty is not paid. The advantage of provisional assessment is that you escape the penalty, because from day one you have the genuine intention, you have the bona fide intention, you are sure that you do not know what is the rate of tax, you do not know what is the value at which I must clear the product. So therefore you are approaching the department, kindly help me till such time, kindly help me in allowing provisional assessment till such time I am able to find out the exact value as per section 15 of the CGST Act, or I am able to arrive at the exact rate of tax for this particular product. So department is entitled to only claim interest if in the meantime you have paid less amount of tax and duty. But this advantage is that no penalty is required to be paid. Now, for example, goods supplied in September 17, tax payable by say 20th October, if assessment finalized in November 2017, hence tax payable by by 15/12, interest would be payable for the period 21/12/2017 to 15/12/2017. Now, there's another the Constitution bench judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court. It says that so long as there is no assessment, no liability to pay tax, impliedly no liability to dope interest over the tax also. Meaning there again, the Supreme Court also says you must carry out the exercise of making the provisional assessment into a final assessment. There's one more judgment of Delhi High Court. Delhi High Court in the case of Pentex Sales Corporation versus Commissioner 2013 has observed that no interest would be payable from the date of filing return, but would be payable from the date of assessment. Now, the Supreme Court in the case of this again is landmark judgment, which is a very latest judgment, is the landmark judgment, which all the professional must make a note of it. Unless there is a specific provision for payment of interest, which is in the nature of damages or compensation, no liability towards can be fastened upon the assessee. So there has got to be specific provision for payment of interest so as to fasten liability of interest upon the assessee. Now, once final assessment has not been challenged by the department, subsequent proceedings by issue of fresh SCN not permissible. If, as I said, provisional assessment I applied for, after due application of mind, the department permitted me to go for to clear the goods or services on provisional assessment basis, and when they undertook the exercise of making the provisional assessment into a final assessment, all information has been provided to them, all documentary evidence has been supplied to them, books of account has been supplied to them, invoices has been supplied to them. So everything which was required by the assessee or in their wisdom was required, I supplied to them, and after proper application of mind and after proper judicial application of mind, they have finalized my assessment and have arrived at a particular figure of tax either payable by me additionally or refundable to me, and this assessment has not been challenged either by me or by the department. Then after 2 years, department cannot issue an SCN saying that no, this assessment was bad in law. And these are the latest judgment of the Allahabad High Court in the case of Honda CL Power Product, Union of India, Manu, UP, so and so, and followed by the Andhra Pradesh High Court in the case of CC versus Paniam Cement Limited, where if no appeal filed by the department, number two, no collateral proceedings by issuing SCN under Section 11A, now in the GST regime under Section 73 or Section 74. So if assessment has not been challenged, as we all know, if on a valuation, the show cause given to me, adjudicating authority confirm demand, first appellate authority again confirm the order passed by the adjudicating authority, Then I approach the tribunal. Tribunal set aside the demand. Then neither I challenge it nor department challenges it. Now, for a subsequent period, for a same product, for a same terms and condition, everything same, then if the second SCN is issued by the department, though it is said that each assessment year is a different assessment year and SCN can be issued, but tribunal has deprecated, tribunal has not appreciated, as has not entertained the appeal of department when in subsequent proceeding, same issue has been challenged by the department, in respect of the same SSC, in respect of the same product, in respect of the same terms and condition, everything remains same. The tribunal do not appreciate and do not entertain such appeals. Reassessment on the basis of subsequent decision is not permissible. The Honorable Supreme Court, in the case of CIT versus Simplex Concrete Piles, Manu SC 1172-2012, and also Division Bench of Allahabad High Court in the case of Samsung India Electronics Private Limited versus State of UP and others, 2016, SCC Online, so on, so. With the what the honorable courts have held is subsequent judgment cannot be used to reopen or disturb past assessment which have been concluded. Further, no reassessment, no change of opinion. At times what happens, there is a change of opinion also. Sometimes change of opinion because of some subsequent judgment. Now, if there is a change of thoughts, there is a change of thinking, there is a some alteration in the somewhere. What the Supreme Court says, the courts have held that no reassessment can be made when the proceedings are concluded merely on the basis of change of opinion. Meaning thereby, you just because you now today you feel or you realize that instead of this thing should have been done, so therefore the assessment which had been concluded, you can't seek reassessment of that assessment which has been finalized. So these are the judgment of the Supreme Court and the Calcutta High Court. The judgments are CIT versus Bhanji Lavji, Manu SC 0251 1971, Arun Gupta versus Union of India, Manu UP 0053, Calcutta Discount Company, ITO versus Manu SC 0013 1960, then the Gene Kit Private Limited, Manu SC 1691 oblique 2016. Now, unjust enrichment, I just said many times you have to show that you have to demonstrate, you have to satisfy the department that the amount for which you are seeking a refund from the department, this amount has not been recovered either as a tax, duty, cess, or in any other form, either from your buyer, from your purchaser, from your dealer, from your distributor. What the Allahabad High Court says, the Division Bench of Allahabad High Court in the case of Honda CL product versus Union of India, Manu UP 4042-2019, what the High Court says, on the basis of CA certificate submitted by the petitioner, held that there is no unjust enrichment at all because the SSC has obtained a certificate from independent learned chartered accountant and has submitted to the department saying that the duty of which a refund has been sought by the SSC, this duty has not been recovered by them from their dealer, from their distributor, or from their purchaser. On the basis of the certificate submitted by the SSC, then the refund was granted to them, holding that that the SSC has been able to satisfy the department that there is rather the onus is always upon the SSC to prove that there is no unjust enrichment. And unjust enrichment can be established how? This I have given two ways. In fact, in all proceedings, to thwart the argument of the revenue about unjust enrichment, it is always advisable to submit these two things. One, an affidavit of head of finance and accounts saying that tax in question has not been recovered, meaning thereby the head of the department may be a general manager, may be a vice president, or maybe manager accounts. He must give a affidavit clearly swearing that in respect of the assessment year or financial year, these are the goods which have been cleared under so and so invoices. This was a tax paid by us, and this is the only tax which we have recovered from our buyer. And categorically, they have to say that the amount for which the refund has been sought from the department, that amount has not been recovered by the SSC from their dealer, from their distributor, or from their purchaser or buyer. On a similar lines, a certificate is also advisable that on a similar lines, a certificate is also furnished from the from the uh, from the department from the learned chartered accountant that the from the chartered accountant that the assessee has not recovered the amount of tax, duty, and cess. Friends, let me tell you, before the judgment of Mafatlal Industries, the landmark judgment, the law was so long as the assessment were provisional, and after finalization of assessment, if the duty and tax was refundable, it was not necessary to establish unjust enrichment. For the first time, when the judgment of Supreme Court in this Mafatla Industries came, then the Mafatla Industries Supreme Court says the assessee is duty bound to satisfy the department that they have not recovered the duty and tax from the assessee. Sorry, not from the tax and duty has not been recovered by the assessee from the dealer or from the distributor. This one, this one. And now we have the best judgment assessment of non-filers. If assessee fails to furnish a return under section 39 or 45 or even after service of notice under section 46, the PO may proceed to assess tax liability of said person to the best of his judgment, take into account all the relevant material as is available before him or which he has gathered, and issue an assessment order within a period of 5 years. This is, mind you, period of 5 years is given to the proper officer from the date it is specified under section 44 for furnishing of annual return for the financial year to which tax has not been paid as per section 62(1) of the Act. For example, AR for the year 2017-18 to be filed by 31st December 2018. Hence, assessment order must be passed by 31st of December 2020-23 in form GST assessment 13. Meaning there are 5 year period is prescribed within which the proper officer has to pass the order. Now the question is, what are the preconditions? What are the basic parameter which have to be kept in mind by the proper officer before he undertake the exercise of best judgment assessment is given subsequently in the judgments. Now, the superintendent has been designated as a proper officer for the purpose of best judgment assessment under section 62, that is your CBC circular of 5/7/2017, where a taxable person, now if the very same person who has not furnished a valid return under 39, if the very same person furnishes a valid return within 30 days of service of assessment order under 62. Earlier, he carried out the best judgment assessment. Assessment order is received, but immediately within a period of 30 days, he furnishes a return under section 39. Then the said assessment order shall be deemed to have been withdrawn, but the liability to pay interest under section 50 or payment of late fee under section 47 will continue as per. So what all he has to do is he has to pay tax as well as he has to pay interest. This is what the law says. Now, there's a judgment of Delhi High Court where the High Court says when you frame best judgment assessment, what all the PO has to keep in the mind, or can it be arbitrary, can it be whimsical, can it be most or say non-application of mind in while framing the best judgment assessment. The condition, the yardstick set out by the division bench of Delhi High Court has been are like this. Number one, best assessment is not a wild assessment. Formation on a rational basis. Wild assessment means there should be some document, there should be some paper, some justification, some rationality, some rationality or action which is devoid of arbitrary action. Next, relevant material must be nexus between the figure arrived and the material which is before the assessing authority. There has got to be, the High Court says, there has got to be objective assessment. Objective assessment with a reasonable amount of guesswork. There should not be wild guesswork. It's some reasonable, proper, and unarbitrary amount of guesswork is permitted when the proper officer carry out the exercise of best judgment assessment. Now, the power of best judgment assessment, power of best assessment has to be exercised bona fide, reasonably, rationally, and need not be and once the judgment, the best judgment has been exercised, when the best judgment has been exercised by the proper officer, generally it need not be interfered, or the order is not liable to be set aside unless on a very strong legal reasons, or he has never been given opportunity of submitting his case before the proper officer. So, friends, from my side, my presentation is over. Now, if anyone has any question, I am open to the questions. Thank you so much once again to the Mr. Chawla and my learned panelist, and at the same time the learned professional friends. Any questions? I am willing to. Or I am at the same time, my learned panelists are there. They can also answer those questions which are put to.
थैंक यू मित्तल साहब, इतने कॉम्प्लिकेटेड सब्जेक्ट को, इतने कॉम्प्लिकेटेड इस मैटर को आपने इतनी प्यार से, इतने अच्छे से हमें एक्सप्लेन किया. थैंक यू वेरी मच. एंड नाउ आई रिक्वेस्ट सीए विपान मित्तल to please read the questions of our members, their name, and request the faculty to please answer those questions.
जी सर, थैंक यू मित्तल सर, आपने बहुत अच्छा एक्सप्लेन किया है. तो अभी क्वेरीज ले लेते हैं. अनुजिंदर जी पूछ रहे हैं, if there is some small mistake in e-way bill and officer detained the goods and vehicle, then what will be the procedure for appeal against that?
He must have given the show cause notice. If he has not given a show cause notice, the better would be immediately file a writ petition, because writ petition is a much faster remedy, and the High Court will give you a remedy within no time instead of the departmental authority. So I'll advise you in such cases, when your goods are detained, immediately file a writ petition, and there are a number of writ petition I have been allowed on these grounds. So better would be file a writ petition immediately. Next.
So संजीव भारद्वाज जी पूछ रहे हैं, can we credit note to give turnovers discount to avoid provisional assessment from the department. ये query एक और अपने campus की आई थी, same query है sir.
At what rate you are clearing the goods? Are you clearing the goods after taking into consideration the discount or not? Now, if you are not taking into consideration the discount, the result would be you would be paying the more amount of duty to the department, right? Now, if tomorrow, once the assessment is finalized, if you find out the actual duty payable is less, then you have to seek refund. Now, seeking refund from the department, how much tedious and cumbersome it is, you know it very well. How you have to manage the person, I need not to say in the open forum. So therefore, in case of discount, in case you are dealing with consumer product, it is always advisable to go for provisional assessment.
Sir, Praveen Kumar ji पूछ रहे हैं, in 1718, in July 17, IGST purchase is shown as intra-state purchase and shown 50% in CGST and 50% in SGST, and taken ITC for July 17 liability as SGST and CGST. What are consequences and remedy?
As I understand, law is simple. Whatever the actual tax and duty payable, you have to pay and seek refund from them. It's permitted also. Next, please.
Mr. Manoj Keshari ji पूछ रहे हैं Facebook के through. I have a query related to GST charged by aggregator like Zomato, Swiggy on essential items at 18% GST on above.
We are going totally. Sorry. With all respect, but this is not today's topic. This is not today's topic. This is e-commerce. Let me very honestly say, I have not gone really deep into the e-commerce, so I will not be able to answer. If any panelist is there, I'll request any of the panelists to answer it, if they like to answer it.
डॉक्टर साहब आप रिप्लाई दे सकते हैं तो देख लीजिए. Otherwise, we can take up this query on our WhatsApp group.
The WhatsApp group will take.
Afterward, we will
answer it. We will answer it. We will answer it.
एक है सर परवेश कुमार जैन जी की क्वेरी है कि हमें पीपीटी दे दीजिए. जैन साहब से रिक्वेस्ट है कि सर हमने व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे भी पीपीटी शेयर कर दिया है, ईमेल पे भी जिन लोगों ने रिक्वेस्ट किया है सबको शेयर कर दिया है. उसके बावजूद अगर आपको नहीं मिला है, आप प्लीज या हमें ईमेल कीजिएगा, व्हाट्सएप कीजिएगा. वी विल प्रोवाइड.
It is your property, not mine. Although it is copyright is mine, but it is your property.
ये क्वेरी हो चुकी है सर. Next. अनुजिंदर जी पूछ रहे हैं दोबारा सर.
I have already answered it. I have already answered it.
अनुजिंदर जी पूछ रहे हैं सर, in case of provisional assessment, if registered person charged tax more from customer, then supplier have to pass on excessive amount to dealer after finalization of provisional assessment. And explain in wise reverse case.
In case provisional assessment, the registered person charge tax more from customer, then supplier have to pass on the excessive amount. The supplier means what? Registered person, supplier, they are the one and the same person. The question is little not clear. We say registered person charge tax more from customer, then supplier have to pass on the excessive amount. The question is not clear. What exactly you want to ask? First of all, if he is a manufacturer or supplier, how he can charge more from the buyer? He will be out of the market. If he start charging more, he will be out of the market. The better thing, as I said, in case of consumer durables, it is always advisable. To go for provision. In case they don't want to go for provisional assessment, what I still suggest you, have some sort of agreement between the dealer and distributor, and on the basis of fair assessment, you sell the product at a lesser rate. You sell the product at a lesser rate, and ultimately you know that he is able to achieve the quantity discount. So you are not a loser, because ultimately you have to give him quantity discount after 3 months or 6 months, as the case may be.
सीए प्रवीण सिंघाल जी पूछ रहे हैं सर, व्हाट इज द टाइम फॉर limitation for issuing notice for scrutiny of returns by department and time of limitation for completing say for year 17-18?
वो तो बताइए दिया पहले पावर पॉइंट में था दैट विद इन आई थिंक हाउ मच 90 डेज दे हैव टू इशू 17 18 और कैलकुलेट कर लीजिए आप उसमें बड़ी सिंपल सी बात है, मैं इसमें क्या बताऊं। वो तो कैलकुलेशन है सर, इसमें नो लीगल इशू इन्वॉल्व। काइंडली सर इज अ सिंपल कैलकुलेशन। डिपार्टमेंट ने इश्यू प्रोविजनल सर्टिफिकेट इशू, क्या डिपार्टमेंट विच टाइम लिमिट प्रोविजनल सर्टिफिकेट क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं? डिपार्टमेंट विच टाइम लिमिट इज प्रोविजनल। वो तो टाइम प्रेस्क्राइब्ड है आपका रूल्स में, टाइम इज देयर विद इन हाउ मच टाइम दे हैव टू इश्यू प्रोविजनल असेसमेंट। रादर देखिए मैं आपको बताऊं, it is advisable on the part of assessee to make a request to the department, please please finalize the assessment as quickly as possible. Similarly, when you applied to the department that please grant me permission for a provisional assessment, there also please do it as early as possible, because if the whole exercise is delayed, you have to pay interest. If tomorrow it is found that you have paid less amount of tax, you are required to pay interest. So avoid that hassle of paying tax. Request the department, please do it as early as possible. Why to wait up to last moment?
Sir, another query from Mr. Singhal, whether summary assessment is just like income escaping assessment in income tax?
I think that is what I have read that judgment.
चावला सर पीपीटी के लिए रिक्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं लोग।
सर मैंने इस पे भी लिख दिया है, अभी बोल भी दिया है कि सब मेंबर से रिक्वेस्ट है जिनको पीपीटी चाहिए, चाहे तो वो हमारे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में है, वहां से डाउनलोड कर लीजिए या मुझे ईमेल कर दीजिए। मेरी ईमेल सभी लोगों को आती है, और मैंने सुबह भी जिन लोगों ने रजिस्ट्रेशन कराया था सबको लिंक के साथ साथ पीपीटी भेज दी हुई है। फिर भी नहीं मिली, आप प्लीज मुझे मेल कीजिएगा, मिल जाएगी। प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
विष्णु जी पूछ रहे हैं सर, कैन वी यूज GST TDS showing in March 2020 GST portal against GST payable for financial year 2021? Will it be a problem in GST assessment? Can GST TDS be accepted after TDS filing GST 3B return?
Can we use GST TDS? TDS means 51, 52. ऐसे 51, 52 की बात कर रहे हैं ना ये? Showing in March GST portal against GST payable of financial year 2021 will be a problem in GST assessment. Can GST TDS be accepted after filing?
मार्च का
देखना
TDS
पड़ेगा।
तो विष्णु जी को रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि आप अपनी क्वेरी को व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे डाल दीजिएगा।
दीपक कुमार जी पूछ रहे हैं सर, GST department cancelled the GST registration June 19. We applied for revocation and department rejected the revocation application and passed order September 19. Hence period for filing APL 01 also expired in December.
Try a writ petition. Try a writ petition. That is the only remedy, because your appellate remedy is also gone. ठीक है ना, आपका आप कह रहे हैं दिसंबर में हमारा ऑर्डर ओवर हो गया था। हेलो
आवाज आ रही है आपकी? सर आ रही है।
हाँ। तो either I don't know when they receive the order, if time is still there, because normal time is 3 months for filing an appeal, right? And now the time after 15th of March will not be included for the purpose of calculating limitation. He can try for filing either first appeal or second appeal. ठीक है ना? एक मिनट सॉरी क्या है? Let me see. Yes. Now what he says is whether officer for the order having the right to review. No, kindly appreciate, no officer has a right of power of review. Power of review does not lie with any quasi-judicial authority. review power lies only when there is an error apparent on the face of the record, but no authority has a power to review his own judgment. This is a settled law. In case of
जी सर।
professional firm of CA, virtually one partner has control over the face of other partner, also equally liable, or department look after DK figure. क्या क्वेश्चन क्या है इनका? क्वेश्चन तो क्लियर ही नहीं क्या क्वेश्चन है. In case of professional firm CA, one partner has control over affairs of other partners, equally liable to department, equally other partner also equally liable. Department looks after. Question क्या है? Now let me answer it. Probably what he is wanting to ask is, for the affairs of the partnership firm, who would be liable? For the department. That is probably his question is. देखिए, it will depend upon your terms and conditions of the partnership deal. If there is only one working partner, other are sleeping partner, then they will not be liable. But if all are working partner, then all will be liable to the department. As simple as.
विष्णु जी पूछ रहे हैं सर, is cancelled e-way bills checked during GST assessment?
During, तो सर आपने असेसमेंट के टाइम तो इनवॉइस दिखाएंगे उनको आप. You will show the invoice because department will ask for more and more taxes. So if in case the e-way bill has been cancelled, you will have to show the invoice also. इस आप देखिए, हमने तो इनवॉइस भी नहीं रेज करा कभी, या इनवॉइस हमने कैंसिल करा उसको, तो दिखाना ही पड़ेगा ना आपको. सीए प्रवीण सिंघल, if any tax has been paid and same is on assessment, whether department will adjust the same in assessment. Wrong head. If no, I think they will provide you the adjustment as I see. बताइए आप लोग, सर आप, what is your opinion? I feel they will give you the
in the annual return you can change that and you can show it in the correct head.
They will give the department will get the benefit according to.
Yes.
जैसे सर अभी के लिए फॉर्म दे दिया है, तो हो सकता है अर्लियर पीरियड के लिए एडजस्टमेंट वो कर देंगे, होपफुली.
If any tax has been paid, no sir. Suggest me whether the officer passed the order have any right to review. And then power of review is not there. Sir, kindly appreciate. No authority under any revenue law has a power of review, unless the review power is specifically conferred under the act. No, they can rectify the error apparent on the face of the record. Meaning thereby, if there is some typographical mistake in writing the amount, in writing the text, in writing the interest or a penalty, then that can be corrected. But on merit, the order cannot be corrected. On merit, it cannot be corrected by any authority.
Thank you, sir. ये very सारी हो गई.
Appreciate कर रहे हैं.
I have one question. In case we have filed the annual return of, suppose for the financial year 17-18 and 18-19 are still due, so in that case, if there is no problem, the self-assessment will be done. Hello.
So you presume that everything is all right.
The self-assessment will be accepted.
But let me tell you, now under section 73, they have a time of 3 years. And in case of extended period, they have a time of 5 years. 4.5 साल है वहाँ, यहाँ 4.5 साल इनके बाद. टाइम तो बहुत है अभी तो. अब तो इन्होंने मतलब क्या कहे, अंधेर गर्दी मचा रखी है. 73 में they have a time of 3 साल. 3 साल तक शो कर सकते हैं आपको.
जी.
और क्या एक्सटेंडेड पीरियड रिवोक कर रहे हैं, वो आपको 4.5 साल. क्योंकि अच्छा, वहां इन्होंने यहाँ जो सेक्शन 75 में शायद बोल दिया है कि अगर 3 साल में और 5 साल में उसको एडजुडिकेशन कंप्लीट नहीं करा तो इट बीइंग टू बी कंप्लीटेड. बट कुछ नहीं, ये लोग ये क्या हर केस में बता देते तो क्या होने वाला है, मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ अभी से। जहाँ एक्सटेंडेड पीरियड इन्वोक नहीं करेंगे, ये आपको नोटिस दे देंगे 3 महीने 9 दिन और 3 महीने 9 सॉरी 3 साल 9 महीने और 10 दिन बाद आपको एससीएन देंगे। आपको कहेंगे 10 दिन में रिप्लाई फाइल करो, 15 दिन में रिप्लाई फाइल करो।
जी
हाँ
जी
जी,
जी
15 दिन बाद आ जाओ हियरिंग के लिए, फटाफट उसको पास कर देंगे। तो कभी पॉसिबल नहीं है।
जी
इवन आप पहला रीजन देखिए एक्साइज का सर्विस टैक्स का एडजुडिकेशन इज टू प्लेस टेक 2 years. Why? 3 reasons. They never supply full document along with the SPN. जो document relied upon है and not
जी
relied upon document they never supply. You have to go on making request to them, please supply me the document which you are relying upon in the SPN. They never supply. Similarly, non-relied document they also don't supply. There are a number of judgment of different high courts have clearly had. Even if you are not relying upon this document, it may be necessary for SPC to prepare a reply to SPN. You return it. If you are not
जी
relying upon, you don't have to deal with this, you return it. So this exercise takes minimum 6 to 8 months. Now thereafter, if they have relied upon the statement of dealer, distributor, your own employee, directors, partner, you would like to cross-examine those persons. You will write to the adjudicating authority, I want to cross-examine these persons. Please allow me. Cross-examination takes sometimes 1 to 2 years. I can say from my experience,
yes sir.
cross-examination takes 1 to 2 years. Now you have only 6 months.
Okay.
ये तो जो होने वाला है अभी सच्ची मेरे को तो कई बार बड़ी
That's going to take a long time, sir.
मतलब ही नहीं, you can't adjudicate within 6 months. Cannot. I can say from my experience, wherever they used to invoke extended period, adjudication used to take sometimes even 5 years. 5 years. Shortest adjudication used to take minimum 2 years. This was it.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request the CA Ravinder Sungarji to please conclude the session and give the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, PK Agarwal ji, PK Mittal sir. It was a really nice deliberation on the very difficult subject. You have explained the sections along with the case laws very clearly, and I think it's going to help all of our CA professionals very well, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.